good evening, everyone, and welcome to the 12 Steps Crashers, episode number 8. Tonight we'll be talking with Jesse, a friend from our alumni group, who will be sharing part of his story with us. Ev, how you doing?
Doing okay. Except maybe for the fact that I was building up frustration. We've been trying to have the technical difficulties sorted out for the last half hour, but I'm living in the solution, man. So everything should be fine.
I'm doing good. I was just enjoying you guys figuring this out. Yeah, it's my first time ever on a podcast or anything like that, so I'm happy to be here and happy to tell my story. 90 days today.
All right, cool. Yeah, and I like how you made that plural, Jesse, as if I was part of the solution for the audio problems.
So I guess we are
Big
all
gratitude.
living the dream.
Yeah, living the dream, as I always say.
All right, so as everyone just heard, Jesse, you just said 90 days today.
Yep.
How do you feel? This on your 90th
Honestly,
day. What thoughts are you thinking?
this morning I woke up and it was kind of like anxiety because I'm like almost waiting for the other shoe to drop. But at the same time, it's like I'm extremely proud because it's like I've never ever made it past 30 days. So to achieve 90 is a huge milestone for me. And the kind of like anger and resentment for me came when I came home and I bought a cigar to celebrate my 90 days. And that's just something I do. And my wife was upset that I spent money. And I was like, well, fuck, like it's an important day for me. Like I need this. It's my celebration. I'm going to go have a fire after this. And I'm going to enjoy the night and be happy and be proud of myself. You know what I mean? Because it's that self encouragement that I lacked before that I'm noticing now is like a huge part of my recovery. So it's like very important for me. But she understood after. She has her own stresses and stuff going on too, right? So,
Yeah, and I hear you when you say it's symbolic though, really, what you're talking about, right?
yeah.
This is what you've chosen, this is your symbol for your celebration. It's a replacement, obviously, for how you
Yeah,
celebrate
yeah.
before. So I look. There might be some people are going to harp on it a bit, but I have no problem with you having a cigar for a celebration. Seems pretty quiet and safe to me.
Yeah, well, it's a
Maybe
lot
one day
better
you'll
than
have one with Arnold Schwarzenegger somewhere.
yeah, a lot better than what I was doing. So, cigar is least of my
Okay,
worries.
since you brought it up, maybe we could go into that a little bit.
Yeah, of course.
Tell us a little bit of your journey. Maybe start where you think is most pertinent.
So the beginning of my journey started when I was like 13, and that was just like softer drugs like weed and alcohol and stuff, and tobacco. And then probably when I was around 16, 17, I started on the pills and like cocaine. Okay, so yeah, it started with like the powders and the stuff and the pills when I was like 18, 19, 17. And then it continued like that and got worse and worse and worse all the way until I was 26. And then I started my recovery journey because I had decided that was it. Yeah, my wife, I almost overdosed. Like I did overdose, or not almost overdose, I almost died. I overdosed multiple times there, and my wife had to revive me and stuff. So that was like a very traumatic experience for the whole family. And then that was where I was like, you know what, I got to put my foot down, start this recovery journey, start it young, and get it under control. So yeah, that's kind of like that story. But my DOC.
You brought up you overdose. I don't know if maybe you could elaborate. Like in what period of time and how many did this all happen in like a span of a month, a couple of months?
No, it was like a year. It was like a year. I'm a poly addict. I'll do any drug that comes up. But my main two DOCs were benzos and
Right.
opiates. So and I would do stimulants to keep me awake, right? So I was just like, yeah, I was going hard on those, and then we all know that most opiates you get now are laced, and then on purpose, the last time I did buy the fentanyl, and my wife left for 10 days and said, you got to clean your act up, and if not, we're out of here. And I fully supported her on that. because there's no space for family when you're doing that, right?
Okay, so then you decided on your silver journey, like, did you know where you were going to go, what you were going to do, how you were going to approach it?
No idea. So my wife had to set it up for me, sort of. So she called around, and my parents also called around, and I went to an NA meeting. I didn't really like it, so that was just early on. I go to NA now, but early on, that was like my first taste of recovery, was going to an NA meeting and getting like the hugs and all of that kind of stuff that goes with your first meeting, your little white chip. And I didn't really like it as much because I like more the science approach, more the religious approach, and I felt that was kind of like a religious-based program, right? So,
Okay,
yeah.
and so you reached out?
And so sorry. And then I reached out, and my parents found out about Sea-Ridge through, I guess they looked online or something, but they looked through Sea-Ridge there. And,
Probably, yeah.
they found Sea-Ridge online, and they lived in Nova Scotia at the time, so that's probably why that ended up happening.
Right.
And I went to Sea-Ridge for a month, and then came back home, was fine for another month, and then I had a huge relapse that lasted probably a week to a week and a half. And then I went back to Sea-Ridge again.
Can I stop you there for a second?
Yeah, 100%.
Can I stop you right there? No. Okay, because this is kind of important.
Yep.
You came home.
Yep.
You were there a month, right?
Yep.
You came home and you had a relapse. Do you recall what the triggers were? What events? Do you know why?
Yes.
Did you ever figure it out?
Yeah, I did. I had a lot of meditation around this. So like I think it was like the pressure that I was being put on me by my family and my external, and like trying to find a job, and like all of this weight on my shoulders that I felt I couldn't handle. And what happened?
A sense of being overwhelmed.
Yeah, exactly. I was so overwhelmed that I couldn't calm myself enough. So I looked for that external escape, which is what I do as an addict. And that's just how that happened, right? So, yeah, that's a super important part of my recovery.
And you said you had a big relapse. Like, can you describe it a little bit? Like, what happened?
Yeah.
Or would you rather not talk about
No, I'm open to anything. So I talked about, so I don't have regular drug dealers. I used to order my stuff off of the dark web. And when I did that, I ordered as much as I could of as many substances as I could. And I combined them all, did them all, a fucking cocktail, and then didn't overdose, surprisingly. But my wife and family knew something was up, and then I was honest. That was the most important part. And my honesty is like so key to my recovery now. And I learned that mainly from that. Because without that honesty and without going back for that 3-day vacation sort of whatever they offer, refreshing course they offer, I would not be where I am now, right? So it's like I don't regret anything. It was all lessons learned, right? So,
right. But of course, so you went back for a 3-day refresher course.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit about that? Because you did your month.
Yes.
But you relapsed. But you say that it's actually the 3-day refresher course that really put it all together for you?
No, I think I put it together for
Kind of
myself.
sounded that way the way you.
No, yeah, sorry. So I put that together
right.
for myself. That was something that I did, but I needed to go back there to get sober. Like I couldn't withdraw.
Right.
So I gave way. That was basically like me going,
Yes.
escaping the routine I was in, the mess that it was, and then it allowed my family to start going to family and friends and Naranon, and then they then understood how to more approach me and not put the weight of recovery on my shoulders, because it's like,
oddly enough, I would say then it did matter.
yeah,
because you were talking about that sense of feeling overwhelmed because you felt that pressure, whether it was real or perceived.
yeah,
At least this time, like you said, with the program that's offered, the family and friends, so they were able to get a bit of perspective on what you might need or might be dealing with, right?
Yeah,
That's how
exactly.
you,
Yeah,
is that how you see it?
100%.
Yeah.
And they still
Okay.
attended. They still attended
Yeah.
3 months later. So
Oh, so they still attend them regularly.
yeah, all the time.
Wow, they're really committed. That's really cool.
Yeah, I'm super blessed to have that. My mom doesn't go as much, but my wife, she goes to probably 2 meetings a week because she finds it helps her with her life too. It's not only like they learn about recovery, but they also learn coping skills themselves.
Absolutely.
So it's I find it super helpful.
I think there's a
Wow.
misconception for most people, even in recovery, that this is to help us with our journey. But as you just said, Jesse, it's to help them with the struggle of dealing with our addiction. And it's not exactly the same thing, right? It really is to help them. And I think that message needs to be reinforced because I guess a lot of families could benefit it and don't know about it or don't perceive it perhaps as beneficial for themselves.
Yeah,
Well, I would argue because it's a smart program, right?
yeah,
That's why they never heard of it.
yeah. I never heard of
Well,
Smart before I went to Searidge, so yeah, so. And when I learned about it, I was like, "Holy crow! Like this is crazy! Like it's so cool! To, like have a scientific approach, and not just a oh you work these steps." Now, I do go to NA and I go to Smart, and I find they kind of complement each other, right? So it's like I get both sides of
Right.
the coin, but it's yeah, I got my 90-day checks, and I'm so excited about that. It's in the mail, so it's all awesome, man. I'm doing really well. I'm really proud of myself.
What I like here and there, and I like success stories, when we talk about the smart program or like Sea Ridge or Heritage, you brought up the family and friends, but like you said, you like that scientific approach
Mm,
because I don't know for you, but for me, it's what I wanted from a program was to feel empowered.
yes.
Like I wasn't completely powerless over what was happening to me. I wanted to take some power back.
Yeah.
And with these approaches and with these techniques and tools, I had that. Now, like you said, the meetings in your area, and I would imagine a lot of that is almost community based too, right? Because we know how much communities matter in addiction because we're so isolated. Reaching out to different communities and being part of them is great if you have them, right?
Yeah.
So,
I agree with that.
is that your impression?
Yeah, I agree with that
You
completely.
agree with
Because,
that?
like,
Okay.
without reaching out to people, like, it's like I say in most of my smart meetings. It's like I need to reach out when I'm feeling certain ways. Because if I don't reach out and I start isolating, I know I'm going to start going down the dark path. And that's just through trying to be sober for 2 years now, right? And this has been 2 years of me trying to get to this 90-day mark. And I always thought it was unachievable. This is something that like everyone else has it not easy, but like it's like everyone else can do it. Why can't I do it? But I find it was because I was lacking the honesty. I was lacking the drive. It's almost like I wanted to fuck up. Like I don't know how to say that in a positive way, but it's almost like I wanted to fuck it up, but like I didn't.
that's an interesting angle that you bring up right now because we've been quite regularly on the journey to try to determine what's the key factor for success in sobriety. When does it click? As much as we want to believe that we accept, it is not that simple, right? Accepting,
That's
yes,
it.
I'm an addict is one part. Oh, accepting that I can never use again is another part. And it may come after a few relapse. Um, and it's a different journey for everybody. So having a long period of sobriety doesn't mean the same for everybody. But also, like reaching your first 90 days is definitely because something did click recently. And I
Yeah,
hear you often speak about honesty. So I guess letting go of a lot of bullshit that you maybe have entertained, even though being sober, perhaps has to do with it.
yeah, Yeah, it's a lot easier to just like keep up with your life because you're not constantly trying to keep up with all the fucking bullshit stories you tell, right? You're like, oh, I was here, and then my wife has me tracked on the maps, and she's like, well, this says you're here, and then you gotta go, oh, well, sometimes those things lag. Like, no, we all know that that's not. but I don't have to do that anymore, and I feel like it has broadened my relationship with my wife. It has broadened my relationship with my kids. I have my kids back. I have my wife back. I have family now. It's like, I'm so blessed and lucky that like my wife stuck through it because like it's just I can't believe she did. The amount of time she had to like revive me or pull me off the toilet because I fell asleep on the toilet and fell off the toilet and whatever mess I was in, she was always there. So I guess when she married me and she said through sickness and health, she fucking meant it. Like there's no doubt about that in my mind, right? And I'm so grateful. I'm
There's
grateful.
no doubt about it. You are loved, my friend. You
Yeah,
are loved.
yeah, and that's a blessing.
Yeah, that's really awesome. Um, you bring up honesty, and now Eb would be the first one to tell you that's where if he's not honest, he feels that's where the relapse starts.
Yeah,
Um, me too. I believe it a lot too, in a way that if I stop being honest, then that's probably I'm on the wrong path. Um, because I look at it this way, you can tell me how you approach it. When I'm being honest, I'm my authentic self. So it allows me to be who I'm supposed to be, who I really am with the people I'm with in the present moment.
yeah,
Once I stop being honest, or once I start hiding stuff or not saying, if I'm keeping stuff to myself and not finding a way to express it properly, then I'm just setting myself up for something later.
yeah,
And I think I kind of heard it in what you talked about, the release that you have from not making up these stories or having to worry. It's
yeah,
just like being guilt free in a way.
yeah, exactly. And the thing I go back to always is she always asks me questions, and it's tough because now that I'm like I call it brutal honesty because that's just what I do. No matter what, no matter where, I don't sugarcoat it. It's just this is what happened. This is why I think this happened. What do you think? And oftentimes it brings up like one of the lies I told in the past, right? And I then have to apologize, and then I then have to like not make up for it, but like I need to explain myself, and that kind of like broadens my understanding also in a way because it's like I hear her side, and her side is just as important as mine, and that's what I need to remember in a relationship, right? It's not just I'm not going through recovery by myself because she's recovering with me because of all the trauma I gave her from doing that, right? So it's a double edged sword, but
Yeah.
it works well.
It's very, very interesting, Jesse, the way that I guess you see it as you're both in recovery for different reason, but together. So
Mm,
you have both your own things that are healing, and you choose to do it together because, well, that your marriage is important to both of you.
yeah,
Um, and I want to say it just as important it is when you are the addict that you really want it. It
yeah,
is also true on the other end of the equation. Like I cannot blame anybody to step out of a relationship. I've experienced it myself, and I cannot blame anybody else but myself. Like the addict is responsible for what's happening, and then the other person has all the rights to make different decisions. And
yeah,
you're one of the very few success stories, right? For all that I know, and that's not much. I don't know shit about fuck, as we often say on this podcast, but very few people stick together, especially young age with young children. That's admirable. It's
yeah.
beautiful to
It's
watch, actually.
no one I know is still with their wife. So it's like I said, it's a blessing, and I'm so grateful every day for it because it's just something I never want to give up. And I kind of find it so important to my healing. But I don't want to base my healing off of her either because it is a personal journey. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it is just as personal to me as it is a double-edged marriage thing. So it's like it's a balance because sometimes I'm like more ahead in my recovery than she is, and we kind of clash sometimes when that happens, right? But it always comes back to the I'm sorry, I love you, and that's the most important part is that we have love for each other. We don't hold resentment. Our rule is that we never go to bed mad at each other, right? So that's like if we stay up till 3 in the morning fucking talking about it, we'll have to do that. That's just the way we've always been.
That seems like a very good practice because it seems to be working.
Yeah. And when I first met her, I was so addicted to cannabis. I looked her dead in the eyes on our first date and said, "Do not fucking try and change me. I'm going to smoke weed for the rest of my life, and that's just the way it is." And I don't do that. So she didn't need to change me. I changed myself. But it's just, it was something I like held so true to myself at that point that I was like, I'm never going to change, and this is my life. But yeah, look at me now. 90 days. Haven't touched it at all.
It's
Okay,
interesting.
well, now that you brought it up, is there a conscious decision behind that?
Yeah, it's because I find
Some would argue it's better than other things.
right. So I know some people use that as like a recovery tool. So for me personally, I almost don't agree with the fact that it's a gateway drug. But there's a point when like the cannabis doesn't do what it needs to do anymore for me, and then I'm always a more person. It's never enough. Never enough. Even with smoking cigarettes, go through a pack a day. Oh, it's never enough. I gotta buy another pack right away. I can't wait till I get off work. I gotta go on my lunch break. Like, you know what I mean? It's never enough. And that's the thing where I have to say, okay, not at all. Because that never enough mindset that I just can't deal with it's something I have to just like watch out for really well, really well. But I don't discourage anyone.
I was saying earlier, like the gradual acceptation. Like you wanted to be sober, but you draw the line. I'm going to be a butthead forever. That's my identity anyway. I smoke weed, and then I don't want to question it. It's irrational belief, but as long as you don't revisit it, it is what it is,
Yeah,
and it brings you where it brings you.
yeah,
Very, 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 very difficult for I want to say everybody, me included, to come to such conclusion that well, this is the main driver that I identify as something that's not a problem in my life, but actually it brings me to what I call a problem. So it might be a problem in itself. And I was chatting today with someone, and actually I realized that even without substance, like that same type of behavior, I'm able to replicate everywhere in all aspect of my life. Can I fall for the disease of more and more? Of course, if it's the case without a substance, it probably is for me with all substances. Again, difficult to accept.
yeah. I agree with that because it's still hard for me to accept. Because on the way home today, instead of buying a cigar, I wanted to buy a different type of cigar. You know what I mean? So it's like, but I can't do that, and that's just not part of my recovery plan, and that's just individual for me. For some people, that may help, but for me personally, I just can't, and that's something I've learned because every time I've done it, it's led to greater and bigger things, and it's always like it won't just be oh I smoke to go to sleep, oh I smoke to help my anxiety. It's oh I'm gonna do it 24/7, fucking all day, all night. So it's just yeah, not for me personally, and that's just I can't do any stuff.
Yes. Yeah, no, that's good awareness, and I'm glad you put it that way. I mean, because some people might ask or might, it's a touchy subject with some people.
Yeah.
Myself personally, I didn't really want any crutches. I already have cigarettes as a crutch and caffeine as the other crutch to get me going. So
Yeah.
I think I have enough crutches, much like everybody else that's already self-described a person of more. I'm a person of more. So I have to keep that in check and keep an eye on that. So Yeah, I hear you.
Yeah.
More podcasts, more memes, more sobriety, more meetings.
That's exactly how it is.
Yeah.
So Jesse, since we got you on, we've known you now for a little while, thankfully, through our alumni.
Yeah.
We can talk about that a little bit. I always like to get people's feedback and what they think, because me and Ev have talked about this, how every rehab center, I mean a center, I don't care the program,
Yeah.
every rehab center should have an aftercare
Yes.
for the alumni. Because you feel like you're part of a group if you had a good experience at said rehab. Doesn't have to be Sea Ridge or Heritage. You understand what I mean? So you're like part of a community. So what did the community mean to you?
So at first, it was super, super helpful. And then, as I said, I relapsed, I disappeared. But coming back now into that community, it's been nothing but welcoming and nothing but loving and nothing but helpful. So I completely agree with you, whereas I say every place should have something similar or give an aftercare program because it's so important because rehab, I find rehab gives you the basis of recovery and then you need help to walk through the steps of recovery as you go through pause, as you go through different experiences, like someone dies or like whatever that experience is. You have a place to share that's safe. You know that you can go to people. You know you can reach out. Like there's so many people that are isolated, and it's not on purpose. It's not by their own doing. It's just they're locked in this place that they can't escape, monetary reasons, whatever it may be. But like, you can always join a Zoom meeting on your phone. You can always walk to a recovery, so I go to Recovery Sports Center here in Halifax, and I do classes, which is kind of like modules. Like Sea Ridge had 4 classes a day, so it's kind of like a module, like we did at Sea Ridge or Heritage, and I find it helpful because it's like exactly what I learned at the rehab. But yeah, it's so helpful to have that aspect of community because without it, I don't think that I would have achieved 90 days. Now, saying that to myself is also like kind of like putting myself down in a way because I probably could have, but it reinforces the need for the community because without the community, what is it? It's just me and my wife, right? And that's still a community, but it's not. I can't say the things I say to you guys in the rooms.
I have a few questions on what you just said, Jesse, before we go any further. But you've mentioned at the beginning, after rehab, you did join the community. Would you say your experience back then was comfortable? Were you like, did you feel like you were at your place doing those rehab meetings, or was it already like not necessarily the place you wanted to be at 7 p.m. at night?
It was uncomfortable because I was in denial that I needed it, and I needed that relapse. I needed that experience again to like really know that this is what I need. And like some people don't need that, but for me personally, like I had an extremely good time in the meetings, but I always held resentment towards it in a way because I was like, well, I went to rehab. I don't do any substances anymore. I should be cured. But like I find that's not how it works for me. For me, I need that like constant help almost. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
Yeah, well, it becomes, or it needs to become actually your lifestyle, right? It's more than just habits. It's sobriety is the way I live my life in all aspect of my life, which means that all decisions we make are impacted directly by the fact that we choose to be sober. And
Yeah.
as you mentioned, I like the way you said it in those very specific words. I needed that relapse to understand this or to actually get to the point where, okay, now I'm ready. And this is really important because very few people talk about it this way. Oh, I
Mm,
relapse and then this. Oh, I relapse and then this. But the story that you tell us is that that relapse was a learning experience.
yeah,
As much as you would have liked to avoid it, it was necessary for you to be exactly where you are today.
yeah. Everything I've
And
done in my life
Yeah,
has led me to where I
yeah,
am.
one last
this is
question
true.
about
And
what you said already, Jesse, because I'm really curious, honestly. When you relapsed and were away from the meetings, did you feel like a shame or like you'd be judged if you come back to the community? Like what was your, or maybe you didn't care about it at all because your
No,
head were elsewhere.
I was scared. I was scared that first meeting I came back. I used to go in my room and just I do NA meetings first, so I had to like ease my way back into meetings before I joined the community of people that I knew previously. So I would go into anonymous NA meetings, listen, not speak, and then I kind of like got the message to myself in a way that I was like, okay, this is something I can attain. This is something I can get. And then I first joined, and I received nothing but love. It was nothing but, oh, where were you? Are you okay? Are you safe? Are things going well? It was nothing but concern and love in the best way possible. So my fear was irrational at that point, but that's also like I find it was shame that led me to like feel like that. Like I was very ashamed of what happened at that
Yeah.
point, right?
And then addictions thrive on that fear, which further isolate you and deprive you from your actual community.
Yeah,
That's insidious, but very important to be reminded that lapse and relapse are part of the process, and you always will come in the room.
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, and I find it very interesting. I really like how you said that too. And when people listen to this podcast, I hope they get the message. Um, you didn't feel ready right away to share with your previous group, but you were able to go to anonymous meetings and
Mm,
just work yourself to coming back to the group. And like you said, you didn't share at those anonymous meetings, but you wanted it somewhere. You wanted somehow you felt like you wanted to come back to the group and share.
yeah, because it was my family. The way I had first joined, it was like, okay, this is like the alumni family. And it was almost, I was getting emails every day. And every time I'd see that email, I was like, I need to go. I need to go. But that shame, fear, and guilt, it overwhelmed my decision making to be positive. And it just took me a while. It took me a while to like kind of warm up to the idea that I wouldn't be met with judgment. And that was my fear, is that I would be judged. And that's everyone's fear. But and opinions, what opinions people would think. But like I always say, opinions are like assholes. Everyone has them, no one wants to hear them. So it's a
Well,
You're absolutely
we can't help anyone's opinions of us, right?
yeah,
We only have our own opinion of ourselves and how we
yes.
proceed and how we walk and talk the walk, right?
yeah,
So I
yeah.
really like how you approached it, and but I really like hearing the message too because we talk often about how these meetings are really important. We
Mm,
talk about how because I'm generalizing here, but generally when you go to an NA or an AA meeting, there's one speaker, right?
yeah,
So it's if you have something you want to put out there, it's easier in our alumni group because of the approach in the room, right? Where we have the check-in to each person, and now if there's something going on, you can mention it in the check-in,
yeah,
or you could just sit back and wait for the topic. And then often you might notice that people will maybe talk about the topic, but then they'll kind of branch into really what their day was or their week was or what they're feeling. And I find for myself, the rooms give us that luxury. They give us that rope
yeah,
to work out what we're dealing with in real time. And I always say, I'm speaking for myself, but I say it to everyone because this is what I believe. When you get into that room, whatever you're feeling or whatever, if you got something that you're not quite right, most days I go into the room, I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay. But I will let out whatever is bothering me on days that are not. And it's just a release that I have to the world. Like it manifests itself, right?
Yeah.
It's cathartic.
It's almost like, I find it's almost like group therapy. It's amazing. And I'm so blessed to be part of a community like that because you receive feedback. I love it.
Therapy, it's a good segue, I think, because you don't have that luxury in therapy. A therapist want to bring you somewhere, is going to bring you there. You're not
Yeah.
talking about, well, today this little thing bothered me, and then let me speak about it for 5 minutes. Like you don't get that luxury with your therapist. Only
Yeah.
in those rooms, such a share or rent or whatever is welcome.
Yeah.
Well, I think you're generalizing. With my therapist, if I have something bother me that day, I can go into it.
Eric,
We will explore it.
Yes, that was a generalization. Yes, but I mean, the clock is ticking, and you're paying for every minute. It's not the same.
Yes, this is true. That's a huge difference, obviously. But as for Jesse, I was going to say, we've really appreciated you in our rooms because your story is such a comeback story.
I
And
appreciate
it's
it.
what we want new people in the rooms to hear. Because the stages relapse is in there, right?
Yeah.
It's in there as a stage, a possible stage.
Yeah.
And what we like to stress is if you relapse or if you lapse or you have a slip, these rooms are welcoming. And this is where you could share it. And we will openly help you. And we will openly validate what you're thinking and feeling, and we'll be there to support you.
Yeah.
This is what we try to do. Obviously, the validation and that maybe comes in text, not directly in the room for facilitators and that. That's not our job.
Mm.
We're there to make the meetings move along, let people express themselves. But it's not a secret that people talk to each other outside of the meetings through text or through phone calls. And this is extracurricular support, right?
Of course, I agree with
I
that.
know that you've received it, and I know that you're one of the people that talks to people when they're struggling or new people in the room, and we really appreciate that because you have something to say and you have the experience to speak to it. You know what I mean?
I always put my number in the chat because I'm always like, you know what, guys? Like, if you have something to talk about, and it happens a lot. People do call me, and like I talk to them, and I just listen because oftentimes people just need an ear, right? So I don't even give advice. I just sit there and I listen because that's just oftentimes that's what they need. And if they ask for a question, I'll answer it. And I have no problem answering it. Like I said, I'm brutally honest because it's just the way I am. I've just grown into this person that I adore because being of service is really helping me as well because it almost gives me a purpose. You know what I mean? It's extremely important to me to help.
100%. If there's a single reason why I do a podcast or I facilitate groups or just attend groups is to make sense of my sufferings. If it can help one other person, it makes more sense. My journey makes more sense.
Jesse kind of explained it perfectly. People just want to talk most of the time. 99% of the time, if somebody calls you, they just want to spit out what is bothering them. They're not asking a question, really. They're just releasing all this energy, right?
Yes.
And the fact that there's someone on the other end, that feels comforting to them. I'm using not I statements here, but I know for myself, it feels like in a way that they're already supporting you and they understand you. But this I'm making up in my own head. I don't know what that person's thinking, but it feels that way. And this is the cathartic and the therapy moments. It is the moments that you really what it is a human being needing someone and someone's there. It's that simple.
Yep. I agree with that. And that's why I said that all the people I have, I try my hardest. I miss some mornings, but I always send good morning memes to most of the people and most of the numbers I have. Because just that simple good morning text could change their whole day. And that's just something that shows that you're thinking about them, you're reaching out, you're like, hey, you have a hard day, feel free, I'm here. I may be at work, but I can always answer later. And it's funny for me because I love sending funny memes and shit. So it's like, it's a really good practice for me too.
Yeah, it's good because when you start doing that, taking time for other, making yourself available for other, without being interested into anything in return, you figure out that those that are your people are there for you as well. For me, it's never one-way street. Even if I'm
Yeah,
the listener, I get something into it. Like connection nourish the both individual involved in a communication. Yeah, Eric was saying a few minutes ago that we appreciate your presence in the room. That's an understatement. I know for a fact that you're saving lives daily, and you have saved mine a couple times.
thank you.
It's this is not to take lightly, and I mean it because honesty like that is confronting for people that are not honest with themselves,
Yeah,
but it's also reassuring for people that perhaps would be hesitant to go that far. They are honest with themselves, but they wouldn't go and share it and lift it off their chest, so they keep weighted. And hearing you talk about it freely also helps other people liberating themselves. It has a butterfly effect, maybe.
yeah. No, I can see that. I really, really
Yeah,
appreciate that.
yeah.
I think that means a lot.
This is one of the reasons we wanted you on the podcast as well, is because your message is one of hope.
Yeah,
It's one of recovery.
yeah,
You talked about how you didn't believe you could get to 90 days because I remember, and I hope I'm not giving it away, but I remember in your shares, you were worried after the 30-day mark
yeah,
because 30 days is basically as good as you got for a while.
yep,
You were kind
100%.
of,
Yep,
you were very aware of, after the 30 days, and we could hear it in your shares, but it got better, right?
yeah, it did. And it's only getting better now. Each milestone that I hit now, it's like, well, it's not necessarily that like I said earlier, it's not that I want to fuck up, but like there's that devil on my shoulder that's saying, oh, you've made it this far, you deserve a reward, or oh, you've made it this far, you don't need this anymore.
Yeah.
But that's a fallacy. That's not true. Like I need this, and I need recovery. I need to show my family. I need to show, like you say, other people in the rooms that it is possible, and recovery does happen. And maybe if you're the one in the 100 of the people that recover, that's so important. Like you say, it's not something to be taken lightly, right? So it's just, and relapses happen, and you shouldn't be ashamed. You shouldn't, because as you said, it's part of recovery. It's a part of learning and opening up and being honest.
You know what?
So
Yeah. And I like what you said. Like, you didn't believe you could not make it to 30 days, therefore you didn't. You didn't believe you could make it to 90 days, therefore you didn't. And I
yeah,
heard a very interesting, relatable story yesterday, actually, about someone that was involved providing services in recovery and has been sober for 20 years, but has been joking for 10 years that at their 20th anniversary, they would drink to celebrate it. It actually
right.
happened. And it was a bad relapse that lasted for more than a year. So,
Wow.
like, be careful what we wish for, but also what we believe.
Yeah,
Because
Well, even
it was one of
I'd go,
it became a plan. I'm planning to
yes,
go on the bender
that's
in
exactly
20 years.
what did I just say about manifesting? You're saying that out loud, but there's part of it feels like part of your subconscious is saying, well, I have a plan, even if you're not acknowledging it.
yeah,
Back here, I have a plan,
yeah,
and yeah, it's those thoughts you got to be aware of. And I know you were perfectly aware of the pitfalls, Jesse, but
yeah. Like I said, it's
how do you feel
fallacy.
now?
Now I'm so proud of myself, like unbelievably. And I'm just like, it is another day for me, but it's also like, now I'm looking forward to getting that 1 year mark or 6 month mark. I know I can do it. It's not like, oh, I'm afraid now. It's like, I know I got this. And if I don't got this, I know I got the room to go to for support. I know I got people to reach out to before I get to my relapse. I have so many plans in place to have like as backups to backups before I reach for that phone to make that call, before I go online to make that order, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Before I go into the store. I don't care. Like, I'm going to call someone. Like, that's just the way I have to approach it. And that's just so important to have, I feel, because like I say always, without a support system, without being honest to that support system, what do you have? You have yourself. And oftentimes, what has my thinking got me? Nothing but trouble. So it's now my thinking's changed, and I often do get those negative thought loops sometimes. But it's like I said before, it's like once you get in that thought loop, if I don't like stop myself within like 3 to 5 minutes, the rotors are eroded and my brake pads are fucked, and I can't stop that wheel from spinning, and I'm gonna crash. So it's just something I'm hyper aware of.
And scientifically, you're absolutely right. Like, substance use disorder is a form of brain damage that is well understood and that is confirmed not reversible. And yes, the brake pads will never be unworn off again. They're fucked.
Yeah.
So you cannot brake on your own. You need a support to brake and make sure that you don't press on the gas.
Crank the handbrake.
Yes.
Well, look, if we could do it on our own, we would have, right? We wouldn't have needed the Sea Richer Heritage and learning these tools and the support group and have a total honesty all the time in our lives, because we can't carry any baggage like some people that don't have a problem with substances can go about their lives and live with their consequences and their conscience for whatever they do.
Yeah.
We don't function that way anymore.
No,
right?
No, I agree with that.
We're beautifully broken.
It's like I like to look at it like that Japanese glass that they fix with gold. They break a glass and then they use liquid gold, like melted gold. You can look it up, and they put the glass pieces back together with gold. So it's like, it's an art. It's a beautiful. I don't know what it's called now, but it's.
So they accentuate the cracks, right? You see the cracks through the lines of gold.
Yeah, and it's made with a more valuable substance.
You put them into a perspective that makes it beautiful. I love it.
Yeah. We're art.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're Picassos. Yeah. Jesse, I'm really glad that you came on to talk with us tonight, because we have a lot of people that come in. We've had a few people, I should say, that have come to share. And this is what I wanted to get back to, because you said it earlier, and it was much earlier. It was back when you were talking about where that relapse came from, and I asked you what it was exactly. You said you just weren't ready.
Yeah.
Basically, right? Me and Eb have had this conversation, and I've often brought up the thought, and I don't know if this is true because we've seen it with other people. It's not specific. It's overgeneralization, but I find it harder for younger people to get to that radical acceptance because they're still young. There's a sense of, well, I'm young. I still got shit I need to experience, right? I mean, you know what I mean? There's kind of that FOMO or whatever you call it. Did you feel that, or is that how you rationalized it sometimes?
No, because I've kind of done it all and I've been homeless, I've done the overdosing, I've done the partying, I have kids and a wife now, which many people my age don't have. I don't know many other 27-year-olds that have a 5 and a 3-year-old that are still with their wife, that like to be a family man, I'm a mason now. Like I do hard work 10 hours a day. So I don't have time to fuck around anymore. And I just kind of take my life so seriously now. And I don't hang out with anyone my age because I don't feel I relate to anyone. I always hang out with people that are much older than myself because number one, I learn lessons. Number two, I can relate relate to them more. And number three, I just connect more with them. Like, it's just easier for me to vibe because maybe I'm an old soul. I don't know. That's just the way.
Hanging around with Eric, he's my elder.
Yeah.
But it's funny. You're 27. You have to remind me often because it's hard to believe you're not 35. Not from the way you look, from the way you talk.
Yeah.
Yeah. But you're right. I think you're right in a sense. I think you kind of nailed it when you said you have all this. You have a family. You have a 5-year-old, a 7-year-old. You have a house. So you're hanging around with people that have the same thing.
Right.
There's a lot of reasons why. It just to me, all I hear is, well, it makes total sense why he's hanging around these people.
Mhm.
And you're not going to, I'm not saying you maybe could, but I mean, I would think that maybe other 27-year-olds that are still on the party circuit, maybe not really talking about the same things that you are thinking about. Yeah.
No, they think I'm crazy.
Yeah, you might be an old soul too, though.
Yeah. They think I'm crazy, dude. They're like, whoa.
But are you though, or are they?
Yeah.
Yeah, now there's that too. Maybe you're not crazy, right? Maybe they're the crazy ones. I know I was crazy.
Yeah, that's the way I like to do it.
But Jesse, it's interesting because it was probably different in your first stint of sobriety. You probably were not ready to let go of people, places, and things as much as you are today. And maybe perhaps you were still more comfortable with those acquaintances because you felt like you belong in that crowd, as opposed to the exact opposite today. I know for myself, and it has nothing to do with age, but people in active addiction, or even people that just casually drink or whatever on a regular basis, I don't hang around with, not because of triggers or whatnot. I just have very little common interest with them anymore.
Yep.
And that's mindset of sobriety that changed. And it's me, not them.
Yep. I agree with that. I had to move two provinces, for Ontario to Nova Scotia. I had to move to Nova Scotia, put down new roots here, put my kids in school, relate to other parents that have got, are clean and sober. Because there are a lot of parents that are clean and sober. And I tell them I'm sober, and if they invite me over to dinner, they put everything away. And not that I need them to, but it's like they do that out of respect. And that's just because I have that respect for them and their kids and what we have built together as a bond. Versus if I would have stayed in Ottawa in that same job, being a kitchen manager. I went from kitchen manager to mason. So it's completely different. I've changed my whole life. And that's just kind of why I need to remind myself that, I've done it. I'm worth it. I can do this. This is what I've chosen. This is my life path now. This isn't my party days, my fuck around days are over. You know what I mean? So.
Hi, my name is Matt Keegan. I am a drug addict and I spaz for no reason. I like to overthink until my brain starts bleeding. I get lost inside my mind, I forget that I can leave it. The doctor gave me medicine and now I fucking need it. They got me so dependent, now they think I am defeated. The game we play is rigged, but I promise you can beat it. I show you how to do it, but at first you have to see it. Once there was a company who made some Oxycontin, told us it was safe when really the shit was rotten. Put a plan in place, got half of the nation flopping. Once they got us hooked, then suddenly there's Suboxone. Yeah, what a genius fucking plan. They sold us a disease and now we're eating out their hands. They're poisoning our children and they do this cause they can. Nobody's gonna stop them cause nobody wants to stand. And if you talk about it, shit, you must be crazy, man. We're so indoctrinated we don't see this light of hand. Just think about it for a minute. The cure for this addiction is a fucking opiate that's 10 times more addictive. And when you bring this up, any doctor will dismiss it. Tell them that you wanna quit, suddenly they're bitching. Half-life is 20 days, tell me what I'm missing. They manufactured a pill that put us in a prison. And according to them, you're on this shit for life. Oh, you don't have the insurance, cash will work just fine. Oh, you don't have any cash, can I help? Who's next in line? Come back when you ain't broken, we'll be sure to get you right. Just be sure that you don't die, cause we know that you'll get high. We don't give a fuck about your life, now get out of my line. And I ain't attacking anybody that Renaissance of boxing. I just think Purdue Pharmaceuticals is a problem. They told us that they'd white out the sky with their prescription. They blatantly fucking lied and said it's not addictive. Our friends and our family died. I know that we all miss them. Now these same people got the fucking cure to this addiction. Wait, oh, and by the way, if you take this medication, you're here for the stay. The withdrawal is gonna last for like 30 days. And don't talk about it, Taper, cause I was Taper too, and Nathan, I was stuck. Yeah, I was stuck. Sometimes you wanna quit, but sometimes that ain't enough. I was sick of being sick, so I swore that I was done. Cold turkey when I kicked, I did it on my mama's rug. And I laid there for a month, body craving for a buzz. All that I could do was send a prayer up above. God, he must have heard me, cause I ain't been hooked on sub in over 5 years, and I'm as grateful as they come. But that doesn't mean I haven't relapsed. Nah. Heroin came back and kicked out both of my kneecaps. And I haven't talked about my struggle with Xanax. That's another story next time I be feeling manic. So do not trust any corporation on the planet, and do not trust the cure if they're the ones who did the damage.
Because of its stronger bond, your
I said do not trust the cure if they're the ones who did the damage.
they're opioid agonists.
And I'm still on a medication that helps me with that. And that's just so important to me. But I'm tapering off that, and that's perfect.
You changed your MET recently, right? Before getting sober, you opted on a new replacement medication, right? Recently?
Yeah, so I was on Suboxone, the films or tablets, and now I get a injection once a month of Sublocade, which is the same thing, but it's like they inject it once a month. It's like a gel that hardens in your stomach, and it just disintegrates almost over the month, and then they give you lower doses each month. So I don't have to think about it. I don't have to take a pill. I don't have to have that addictive tendency of like, okay, maybe if I have one extra today, it'll be okay. None of that. Like, it's taken out of my hands. And that's so important for me in my recovery. And if you know anything about Suboxone, taking extra Suboxone doesn't do fuck all. There's a ceiling effect, and it doesn't do anything. But getting the injection not only keeps me accountable because they drug test me once a month, I have the ability to go about my day and wake up and not think about my next dose. Think about my next, like, you know what I mean? And that is important to some people. Recovery medications are extremely important, and they save lives. I want to stress them. But there comes a time to start thinking about getting off. I think, at least for me personally. I don't want to say that because maybe some people need it for life, but
Well, you won't get any argument from me about harm reduction.
yeah, like, you know what I mean? If you need to stay on it, stay on it. But like I'm ready to come off of it and not be dependent, and I'm ready to change and grow.
I never heard it put that way. I'm really glad you described it that way. How
Yeah.
it takes the mindset away of that every day of my dose and the idea that maybe, I could take more just because we have that thing of more that we live with. That frees you. That frees you a bit more of that mindset. And I'm really glad you said it that way.
It really does. Though. Yeah.
I only have my antidepressant to take on a daily basis, right? And it takes all of my mental energy not to forget it. So, like, it's human, but most of us are ADHD or just scattered on some days. We, like, having to always think about the medication, at what time, how many of them I need to use. I think for me also, when I have more medication, I feel sick because
Yeah.
I take medication, or, I have to put a patch, I have to put a film under my tongue.
Yeah.
It's because I'm sick. But
Yeah.
it's in your stomach. You don't think about it. You go by your day. You go by your entire month without having to think about it. Sounds like a game changer for me.
It is, and I'm so blessed that my doctor like talked about it with me. She was trying to get me on it for a while, and I hit a point where I was like, I'm ready to try this. And it's been nothing but amazing and nothing but beautiful, because it's just, like I said, it takes it out of my hands. And as an addict, I want more. And that's just part of my disease. And that's just the way it is, right? It just works. It works for me. And that's just my story. And that's just personally how it happens, right? And it is a life-saving medication. And it's important to remember.
Eric, it reminds me of the interview we did with Sam, who actually, like, at some point he was in the hospital, but he was given pills for himself to manage, and his DOC is opiates.
Yeah.
Came to a point where he begged the nurses, can you crush it in an orange juice before you bring it to me? Because I cannot shoot orange juice. Like
Yeah.
that, as an addict, we need some guarding. Like if the possibility is there, it's going to obsess me. But if it's not, I cannot go about it.
But Sam has a different mindset now of it, right?
Oh, yeah.
He's adamant almost against it because of that hatred of it. The
Yeah.
hatred of the mindset, really.
Because he had to taper off Suboxone and it was worse for him than tapering off Fent.
Yeah.
But tapering off from Sublocade sounds to be more comfortable and you don't even notice it, right? Do you have withdrawals when the new injection come in?
No, don't notice it. Yeah, don't notice it at all because the way it disperses a slow amount of medication. I was researching it a lot, and it could take up to 18 months for a single injection to be fully dispersed, and it's so slowly dispersing.
Okay.
That I won't even notice it at the end because it's just gradually going down so slowly. And I don't need to think about cutting the strips because I was tapering off Suboxone as well. And it was so fucking hard because I was like, man, I gotta break this up. I gotta cut this up. The little strip, I have to cut it into 8 pieces, and then I can only take 2 small pieces. And it's like, but all those pieces are there. Why can't I take it? You know what I mean? And it's such a battle because
Constantly dope sick.
yeah, the withdrawals are brutal, and they last
Always.
they last months. Like
You know what? And I think this is really important what you're saying here, and it's a good example of how some of the harm reduction can still be better. Because, like you say, it's weird, right? You're still in a mindset. You're still you're still preparing. You're in a routine that almost brings you into a place of going back to your mind where you don't want to go.
Yeah,
it just sounds like. It just sounds kind of counterproductive, right?
Yeah.
Like there has to be a better way, in which I think you're describing actually. But
yeah,
it's mind-boggling that we, in some ways, it makes no sense to me that we leave it up to the poor dope sick addicts. Sorry, I don't want to say it that way, but I mean I'm just making a generalization to manage this and not recover in the mind at the same time while the body is trying to recover and trying to reconcile the both things. But you're doing this, right?
yeah,
Like ideally, we would be like for years in a treatment facility, tapering down, being assisted, being watched over. But life doesn't work this way, right? Life has to go on, and you're on yourself handling those trips. That feels like hell, honestly.
yeah.
I
It
don't
does.
blame anybody from relapsing in such context.
Yeah, and it's so hard, man. Like it's so hard because you have to go to work. You can't take months off work to get through it. You can't take however long you need, right? Like you got to work through it. You got to do it. Constant aches and pains, constant flu-like symptoms. It's crazy to me that they marketed it as okay, you'll be fine if you take this and then get off. But now there is a way. And it's just a blessing that I have this chance to do this. And I took the chance. I didn't just ignore it. There was a point where my wife, when I was tapering myself, I had to give my medication to my wife because I needed that accountability because I was staying in the same place, but my doctor was lowering my dose. And I would end up running out early. And then I would have to call my doctor, make an excuse, get more. And it was just a mess. And that was kind of what led me to relapsing a little bit too, right? Like it was just that constant need to feel okay when you're not feeling okay for months at a time. You know what I mean?
The shot was the first moment where you were no longer chasing comfort, essentially.
Yeah, I'm stable. I feel stable.
So not chasing comfort is very important in sobriety. You're the first person I've actually witnessed talk this way about Sublocade, and there is such a fear and bad press around Suboxone. Having heard countless horror stories, I can understand why, which make people hesitant to try, the next best thing from the same pharmaceutical, Purdue, I believe, because they're the devil and whatnot. But
Yeah.
Why? What'd they do?
They sell the poison and the antidote. That's what Matt Keegan says, right?
Yes, I love that. I love that song, Subtoxin. Yeah.
That's great, and I'm glad you did bring it up because, as you know, the recovery path is different for everybody. And obviously, I don't believe in straight. Like, I had to be tapered off, right?
Yeah.
You know, I was in heritage, and I had, what they were giving me to taper me down and to keep me stable.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it fallacy to think that you can be on something so long, and then you think, well, just do this or just believe in God, and you'll be fine.
Yeah.
No, that's not how biology works.
No.
You had to go there, huh?
I had to at least once. That's not how body chemistry works.
The spirit will take you from dying from withdrawals. Yeah.
Yeah.
Now you said it, not me.
Puke your guts out and pray. You'll be fine. Don't eat for days.
But spirituality is important, I guess, for all of us, and we all have a different perception of spirituality. We joke a lot on the podcast, but 12-step is important for a lot of people and saves life.
I agree.
Even Eric can deny that.
No, I don't deny it. I just, I have other opinions about it.
For me, it complements each other. Like the smart recovery and attending meetings, just for the fact that it's a community and that they celebrate milestones. I don't necessarily need to work the steps to go and hear success stories. I can just go. You know what I mean? I don't need to participate in the steps. I can just go and listen.
It goes back to what I'm saying very often. If you skip the 21st minute, you cannot notice the difference. Except maybe the rules like no crosstalk or no feedback. But other than that, what an addict has to say on the moment is universal. And honestly, there's no difference. However, Eric and I are a bit on the spectrum, at least ADHD and probably a few other things. So we get very caught up with details.
Yeah.
And certain things like contradicts one another. This is where actually it mind fucks me. But I don't have to go there. I can go in the 12-step room. I don't have to question and try to understand the big. No, it is not about that. It is about addicts and recovery and community, fellowship. And I think, there's value in there for everybody.
Yeah. And everyone's journey is different. Everyone's journey is different. That's what I want to say. Everyone's recovery is different. And that's what I strive to say in my statements. Because what I need isn't what you need. And what you need isn't what I need, right? So it's just everyone has a different path to recovery, and as long as we're recovering and healthy and happy, what else can you ask for?
Oh yeah, that's why I love your shares, because you always do I statement.
Yeah.
You talk about yourself.
Yeah. It's really important too to look at it that way, and because it's our own. When I shared on my 1 year, I said a lot of things, but when I ended, it was kind of tearful. But in a way, I was acknowledging the community and how much they'd helped me. But at the end of my share on that 1 year anniversary, I looked right into camera. And I went, but I did this. I fucking did this year. It was me. You know what I mean? And I took ownership of my recovery.
Yeah. And that's so important.
I find it very important that people take ownership of their recovery.
Yeah.
Not give it away. It's yours.
Yeah, I haven't said it in months, but I am my own higher power, and I strongly believe in that. I'll surrender to myself, not to drugs or to any other things.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's amazing.
Jesse, we are going to soon go to the end of this episode, but I guess that's a possibility we have you back on a podcast because I think you have more to say.
Yeah, of course.
First of all, I think it's important to celebrate one more time your 90 days because it is a huge achievement. Not a celebration as we often hear in our rooms, but it means a lot. You said it yourself, like you already see the 6 months, you already see the 1 year, and this is where you want to go, right? So 90 days already behind you. Flush and repeat. Tomorrow's 91, but 91, 92 all means the same.
Yeah.
But that journey you're on is beautiful to watch. And I hope more people get to see you on that road to sobriety, and your message needs to be heard.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Yeah. It means a lot. I really do appreciate that.
Do you have any burning desire, though, to talk about anything else before we close?
I was so happy to be here, and I'm so grateful you guys asked me to come. And I can't say nothing other than I'm so proud of you guys for doing this, and I'm so proud being on this podcast, and I'm so proud of myself. Honestly, I'm so proud of myself for these 90 days because it's been nothing but hard work. But the hard work isn't hard when I want it.
You did this. Nobody can take it away from you.
Yeah,
And your wife should be proud of her own 90 days as well.
yeah.
Yeah, and I just want to say, Jesse, just so you know, you did your service today.
Thank you.
We are going to clip that part when you talked about the armor duct. That is going to be so important for someone to hear. It's going to save someone's life. And I want you to know that. I'm really glad you brought that up tonight.
That's very touching. Thank you.
You're not going to celebrate, but I want you when you get off to go enjoy your family because that's the gifts, right?
And your cigar,
Definitely.
because you're inside.
Yeah.
You cannot enjoy your cigar during the podcast.
Hey, man, the podcast is more important than smoking. It's all good. I will go enjoy it, though.
All right. I like
Yeah.
this guy. Yeah. Jesse, thanks a lot for coming on. And like I said, it's really important you got that message out. It's so beautiful how it came out organically.
Mm.
We weren't even thinking of that really. So I'm glad because that is really, you're going to see that. That's going to be our clip.
Thank you. Awesome.
All right. You're rambling, Eric. You repeated the same thing 3 times. All right.
Can edit it.
Good
So
night.
that'll be the end of the episode then. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
Thanks for being with us. Bye.
Bye.
12-step crashers.
Check out the meme page.
Yes.
That was great. Holy shit.